So I just am so delighted that we have the honor and privilege of having our Senator, Kelly Loeffler, former senator, but still my senator, here in Paulding County to speak to us. We met a couple of years ago, well, actually several years ago, but we didn't get to know each other much then. But then when she became senator, when she was appointed, we just had the most wonderful talk, and I just immediately knew that she was our kind of lady, that she was conservative, but she was also kind and compassionate and just a good person, the kind of person we need, a smart business person, a hard worker, a person that anybody could talk to, but she could talk to people at the highest levels and on our behalf. And anyway, so I'm not going to waste your time because I know that you want to hear from our friend and Senator Kelly Loeffler.
Thank you all. What a warm introduction, and it's just very humbling to be in this room of really dignitaries. I mean, you can see by the introductions that Lydia made. Lydia, thank you for hosting me and hosting Caitlin and I. My colleague Caitlin is here, Caitlin O'Day. We really get energized when we are at the county level, because coming from Washington, I realize that everything good that happens locally. And I talk about that everywhere. And this room is a great example of why everything good that happens locally. So thank you all for putting yourselves forward. Even if your name didn't get called in those introductions, you're a leader because you're here outside an election year. This is 2023, and yeah, we're going to have municipal elections this year, so it's never not time to be involved. It's always the right time to be involved, and in fact, it's probably more important now than ever to be ready now, because when 24 comes, then the uncontrollables start to get in the way. So I want to thank each of you for your leadership, and you don't know when you're a leader maybe how many people are watching you. And they get their inspiration and their courage and their strength and their encouragement from you, from your leadership. So never forget that you're having an impact on people by putting yourself forward and doing what you're doing locally. How many of y'all attended the state party convention in Columbus? Okay, good number. Yeah, I saw a lot of y'all there. It was lovely. Unbelievable crowd, lots of energy, which was super encouraging to see. And we have a lot of work to do, so I was very encouraged by the number of people at the convention. I made some remarks, and I wanted to share the kind of thrust of those remarks with y'all, but it's going to be brief, because what I'd love to do is make sure that we have time for questions. And if you have questions about anything I've said, or looking ahead to 24, or how to get involved, you can ask a question at the end, so be thinking about that. But I want to talk about three things briefly. And these are based on my experience, not just in politics, but my experience in business, in living the American dream. And the first thing I'll say that I want to talk about is the best way to predict the future is to create it. And, you know, we have a chance in Georgia to create a future for ourselves, as you've done in Paulding County. What a beautiful place. It's growing, it's vibrant, because each of you have taken a hand in creating it. And that's what we have to make sure that we do for Georgia and for the country, because as Georgia goes, this country goes. Because believe me, I saw it firsthand. What happened in 2020 happened to me. A lot of people get mad at things that happened in 2020, and I said, wait, you don't have to tell me. It happened. I was there. I was with you. I had real skin in the game in terms of at every level. So how do we create the future? We're going to talk about that. I also want to talk about the fact that those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. So let's take our lessons forward, but let's look forward and say, how do we apply the lessons learned? There's been a lot of lessons learned in a short amount of time. And then the third thing I'll say is a quote from our former president, President Trump, that he said, sometimes in losing the battle, you find a new way to win the war. And, you know, we're not all perfect, okay? We find things that we're like, oh, we should have done this, we should have been looking at that, we should have done that. Well, let's learn that and make sure that we go out and say, this is bigger than us. We're on a mission. We have a bigger mission. It's not about one person. It's about this country. And it might sound lofty and like, well, but what can we do here? Well, we can all do it together if we work together. And my husband and I have been married for about 19 years. We're going to be 20 in next April. And we don't agree, and Nancy's laughing because she knows my husband. We don't agree on everything. We get along really, I mean, we never fight, but we don't agree on 100% of things. I might be a little conservative for his taste, but we know that we are stronger together. And we know that we aren't going to agree, and we respect each other's differences because we both want the same things. We want success for each other, just like we want success for people in our communities, in our nation. So I say that because sometimes we need that reminder that we are not going to agree with everyone 100% of the time. And I would say that to people often. I would say, you may disagree with what I'm doing, but I am never going to vote for due date abortions like our current US senators. I can tell you. You know that about me. So we have to keep in mind the big picture. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than one person. It's the future of this country. And the future is our children. And what's happening is they are indeed coming for our children. And I don't have to tell you that. You see what's happening. It's not just in the womb due date abortions. It's everything that's going on in schools, the curriculums, putting boys in girls' sports, dividing kids, turning kids against each other, labeling kids as oppressor and oppressed, victim and victimizer. It's wrong for kids. They should be learning math and reading and science and history and all the things that give them the building blocks for success. But they're very focused on using our kids to change this country. It's very unfair to our kids. So if we can't agree on anything, we have to agree that we need to help our kids succeed. They've been put, I mean, think what they put through in the pandemic, the learning loss, the division that came out of this kind of radical CRT agenda, and now the transgender activism that's being pushed on them. I mean, this is real. And they said it wasn't real. I was the first US Senator ever in the history of this country to introduce a bill called Protecting Women and Girls Sports. Okay? So how many senators do you think I could get to sign on to that bill in 2020? 4. They said it's too divisive, it's not happening, it's not real. And I said, it is happening. We have to stand up. And this is a basic thing. We fought 50 years ago. We signed Title IX so that girls and boys would have the same opportunities and compete. Anyway, fast forward, it has now passed in the House as of this year, 3 years later, thankfully. Because Republicans won the House. When conservatives get control of Washington, we can get our lives back and get back in control of our lives. So that's the thing that we have to remember. I was also the first U.S. Senator to stand up and call for, looking into BLM Inc. And I was criticized for that. And I said, look, they're never going to live up to their name. This is a grift. I was attacked relentlessly in the media for that. Now, look what's happened. They're a fraudulent organization that didn't do one thing to help the black community that they said they would help, that they raised money on the back of. So my message is that I went to Washington to be an outsized voice for Georgians. I was told, you're the 100th senator, just watch and learn, just be quiet and learn. And I said, no, that wouldn't be fair to Georgians. They didn't send me up there to watch and learn. They sent me up there to be an outsized voice. And for that I was attacked, and now I can say, I lived through it, I'm stronger, and I encourage you to use your voice. That's why when I got out of the Senate, I started Greater Georgia. Because now we're getting to the point where, in the conversation where I say, those that don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. So what I learned in 2020, I built an organization around it called Greater Georgia. And I set out with 3 objectives after what I saw. So, the Abrams organization had raised $100 million that was plowed into 2 Senate races on the other side. It was $1 billion combined Senate race between me and David Perdue against the other side. And there was infrastructure that we had left over, and I said, how do we apply this to the whole state and make sure that candidates have what they need in terms of mobilization, voter engagement, awareness, education, election integrity, And our mandate has stayed true to that. We're in our third year, but it has grown. Election integrity, for example, our initiative set out educating our voters on Senate Bill 202. And I want to thank y'all. We've got 2 legislators in the room. Thank y'all for continuing to support it. We brought to light an exploitation of a Zuckerbucks loophole that was closed off in 202 that then they closed again in 222. But that shows you have to be watching every year. You have to stay on top of it, because DeKalb County was bragging that they got $2 million in Zuckerbucks after the bill was passed. Well, that's not how it was intended. Anyway, this is the type of advocacy work we do. We just kind of shined a light on the fact that our state pointed out that we have cyber exposure and that they were not going to patch it until after the 24 elections. And we wanted to make sure that people understand that they can trust our elections. This is critical. This isn't about looking back at 2020. This is about looking ahead and making sure our participation continues to grow. So we had about 57% voter participation in Georgia, highest in the Southeast, compared to the national average of 52%. Now 57 might sound really low, and it is, because hundreds of thousands of conservatives are still staying home. They're not voting. And that's where we come in. That's where we come in and say, sometimes in losing the battle, you find a new way to win the war. We've got to get more people involved. That's why I've been doing outreach to diverse communities, underrepresented communities in our conservative movement, the Black community, the Hispanic community, women. And I say women underrepresented, I mean that women often are put at the center of these policy issues. They're dealing with their kids in school, healthcare, the economy. But make sure that you use your voice. You have tremendous power. Make sure you use your voice and your vote. And also young people. So I love that we have a college Republican leader here, because college Republicans, young Republicans who we work a lot with across the state, are our future. And we have to encourage them and show them that there are resources here. And that's what we've done to partner with a lot of you to say, how do we best engage in your community? Faith Leaders Roundtables. We did a great Black Leaders Roundtable where people could talk about the issues and where they agree and disagree. Because we have to, within our movement, be able to talk about the issues that we agree and disagree, and then agree to unite and move the party, get the movement forward so that we can grow. Because we're never going to have the money advantage. I mean, Soros just passed his organization. I mean, you probably saw the headlines. George Soros, multi-billionaire, passing his organization to his 37-year-old son, who says he is more political than his dad. Okay? And what is he focused on? Elections, how elections are run, funding elections, radical organizations, not just here, but globally. He's got seriously troubling issues advocacy in America and around the world. Now, one of the things that I want to close on before we do Q&A is just how do you get involved? Okay, so first of all, by being here. It means a lot, because when you leave here, I hope you will be telling people about it. You'll be sharing what you learned with 2 or 3 friends or family and encouraging them to say, here's what we talked about today. Saw these great community leaders. We were all together. Talking about the importance of keeping our way of life here in Georgia, preserving it, and making sure that the country can count on Georgia, because the pathway to the presidency, to winning the Senate in 2024 runs through Georgia, even though we don't have a senator on the ballot. You know why? Because we have to make sure we take Georgia off the table and can focus in those states, because if we can win the Senate in 2024, then we've got the House. A lot of good conservative policy or pushback on the bad policy can start to come to light. Obviously, it'd be great if we can assure the country of the presidency. We can't do that, but we have a lot of local elections that are going to be really important. We have to keep the state House and the state Senate. We have to keep our great county commissioners, our mayors, we have to improve where we can, whether it's DAs or mayors or people that are not supporting our police or law and order. So there's a lot of work to do here, and we can't just focus only on the presidential race. And I'll tell you just a fun fact, because I'm working on some of the national committees. We don't really have a chance to win the Senate again after 2024 until 2030. because of the map, the way that the election the map comes out. So this is a really critical year, so we have to do our part to help the nation focus on those winnable seats, Ohio, West Virginia, potentially Michigan, Montana, Arizona. You know, we've got about 5 potential targets, and getting 3 would be critically important. So I would say about Greater Georgia, if you can all go to greatergeorgia.com and sign up to get involved. We do things like voter registration drives, we do door knocking, we do postcard writing, we do all kinds of efforts. The newest one that we're about to announce is a voter roll integrity effort to make sure our voter rolls are accurate. Georgia is one of the toughest states for voter rolls to be cleaned and, you know, voters removed when they pass or become felons or move out of state. We want to make sure that they're accurate for 2 reasons, and we're continuing to register voters too. So first of all, if you go to vote, but you're in the wrong precinct, you won't be able to vote. So we want to make sure they're accurate so that everyone is aware that when you show up to vote, you're going to be able to. But the other one is to make sure that we have voters that can vote in one state and they can vote once, and that bad votes don't cancel out your good votes. So we're going to be very focused on that. So anyway, start with going to our website, sign up, get our newsletter. Our past newsletters are on the website. And if you get a call or like people say, hey, can you come volunteer, and you say no, that's okay. We'll put you on the list for next time. But just, you know, make sure that you point your friends and families. And please continue the great work that you're doing here, because all the good stuff happens locally. So thank you, and we'll just go to some questions.